So I've received those PCBs that I've ordered from GLC PCB, and I've already unpacked them, but just to kind of like show you a bit of an unboxing, not quite. Here's are the three sets of boards that I've received. Let me put the box aside. So there's the top plate, the PCBs, and the bottom plate. So we've got essentially 5 of each here. So I think there's not too much of a surprise when we get to the top plate here. There's 5 of each in the bottom plate, so that's not really a surprise. Now let's have a look at the PCB, because that's where there's the more complicated work that we need to do here to figure out what connects to what. So let's just take one and put everything else aside. So one thing that we need to do here is to identify which pins are which side is my ProMicro set. So let me just pick a ProMicro. Here's a ProMicro. The same pinout applies to the BlueMicros, but let's just open up one of those. We don't use those little guys here. And let me zoom in a little bit so that you don't have to work from too far ahead. Okay, so here's a ProMicro. What we got to figure out first is, as you can see right on here, we've got the ProMicro would fit essentially just like this with its headers. However, what we need to do is figure out, does it fit right side up like this, or does it fit around, face down? So that's one thing we need first to figure out, is which side is the proper one. And what I can do here is just instead of having a ProMicro here like this, that's like all black and difficult to figure out, let me just go to the source, and let me zoom out so you can see here. Go to the source, and here's the ProMicro. Now, one of the elements we need to do, and one thing I really want to kind of show you here, obviously on the web page this is in color, but what we need to do here is identify on the board which side is which side. And then to do this, it's actually pretty easy, because what we need to do is, you see these ground ones that I'm kind of just putting in green. These 3 should all be connected. So by identifying where these 3 are located on the board, we can know, okay, well, is this like raw pin here that's on top? Is it on the left or is it on the right? And then we'll be able to identify on the board here which one is which. So let's get into that, and we're going to put that off to the side, and what we're looking for is these green ones there. So these green ones, where are they? So I'm going to go and pull out my multimeter, and I'm going to zoom out a little bit so that you actually see it a bit, and like this, and going to go in continuity test mode. Now, so what we're looking for is for 2 pins, the 2 ground pins, next to each other that are essentially, we have continuity between the 2. And because this is just a PCB, there's no electronics or anything like that, we don't have to worry about anything. So let's first start on one side, and we know that the pin is off the pin. We know that the USB port is at the top, so it's either going to be on this side or opposite these 2. So let's go and first try on this side here. So 1, 2. So let's just see here. So we've got continuity. It looks it's exactly like this, and let's confirm on the other side. That's good. So this is actually exactly as we see it right now. Now let's look at this here. So we see that the raw pin is here, and then the TX is the square one there. So let's just go into this piece of paper, which is massive for the camera here. For this piece of paper here, let's just take some notes. So let's move that here. So we know that 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just gonna go like this. Does that show up? Yeah. Okay. So we know, and I'm gonna just go color code. So one in green. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2 is green. And so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2. So green is in the ground. Okay, so now what we need to do is identify. Now we've got the orientation of the BlueMicro set with the board. What we need to do is identify is verify if the reset is connected to the reset here, and which one. So this will help us as well, just confirm. So the reset, so let's go and pick our ground, and the ground should be connected, there we go, one. So the ground is connected to this one here, so I'm just gonna color code it in green right here. So now the reset is just next here. See 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So this pin here. So the reset should be one of those, well, other 3 pins. So it's not this one. It's not this one. Really? Did I have that wrong? Okay, I had it wrong earlier. So the ground is this one, and I'm gonna put another, I just use black. So the reset is in black. What did I say here? So it's this, the reset is the 3rd one here. So I said this one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, good. So the reset is this one, the ground is there. Okay, so let's just confirm our ground here. So ground should be connected to the 2 and these 2. Good. So that's good. Okay, so now we've got 2 important pins set. Now let's look at what happens with power. So let me just gonna zoom in on here. Let me zoom in on here just to show you what I'm going to be talking about. So when we talk about power, there's typically 2 powers on the BlueMicro. There is what we call the raw and then the VCC. Now for the BlueMicro, raw is usually connected to the 5 volt on the micro USB, and then there's a regulator that regulates down to either 5 volt or down to 3.3 volt, the VCC, depending on if it's a 16 5 volt or 18 megahertz 3.3 volt. Now the VCC and the raw on some boards, because they're both 5 volts, some designers, some keyboard designers have essentially jumpered these 2, and that causes a problem for 3.3 volt chips. Now let's check if we would have that problem or not. Now for the BlueMicro, what we do is the raw is that's where we connect the battery. So obviously we can't connect the battery to VCC because then that bypasses the regulator and you could fry out the chip as well. So let's go and have a look and see on here if we have our raw and our VCC connected together. So let's go and move this back here and let's check. So our okay, so let's kind of go down the list here. So we've got these two pins connecting together because they're all side by side, that's fine. But then let's just go down the list. Is raw connecting to anything around the BlueMicro? So let's just go down the list. So we've got self, and then just go down the list. And go back up and just verify. Yeah, so the raw is not connected to anything, which is good. So we've got ground, we've got let's just have a quick look. We've got reset here, and then we've got VCC. So for VCC to itself, let's just go down the list to itself, and then there should not be any connection to anything else. Just for a keyboard, because there's no need for. Okay, so that means both the VCC and the raw pin are not connected to anything else, which is good, because that means that there's going to be no worry about if we put a BlueMicro to have any shorting of raw to either ground, or the VCC to either ground, or between raw and VCC. So we're good. So let's kind of put some colors on here. So I've got my reset here that I've put in black. Let's kind of have blue here for raw. So blue, oops, it's a little bit too large here, so let me just go back. So I've just put my raw here on this one. Now if I go VCC, let's use that in red. So just after my reset, so let's just go here, this is reset. And then VCC, let's color code that like this in red. And this is like red like this. And then everything else is GPIOs, or essentially input-output pins. So we're good. So we've got identified all the functions and the orientation on our board. Now what we need to remember here in this case is, for the Semaphore, the square is opposite to raw. That's the important part. Okay, now what we need to do is identify rows and columns on here. So rows and columns, and we don't need to go too far for that. So, and the Semaphore, how it's going to work is, if you look closely, we have to mirror it just like this. And let me make it a little bit zoomed in so that you see what I'm talking about. So when we're going to solder our board together, so the two halves together to make our PCB, what we're going to do is we're going to be soldering these joints here together. So what I suspect is this is probably a column connection, and these are row connections. Now for the last column and last row, these guys here will have to identify which one is which. But like one step at a time. So let's take only one of the boards and kind of go down these guys here. See where these are connected to our pins. Okay, so let's again use our multimeter. So now let's go down what looks to be columns first. So I'm gonna go to this one to itself, which is good. Now let's just go down the list. No. So it's not on this side. There it is, we found it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 goes here. So 6 on that side. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's F5. So let's put F5 here. And let's carry on. Now we've got our F5. Let's go into this one here. So let's go down here. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And if we go back here, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, that's F6. Let's continue here. So we've got 1, 2, where's that? 1, 2, 3, this one. 3, 4, there we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the bottom. If I go here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the bottom, that's F7. Okay. I think there's a pattern repeating here, so that's F7. Now let's go to the top here. So this one, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Let's go back here. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's B1. Now let's go down. Well, it doesn't really matter which one of these two, so let's just go on these other guys here. So let's go into these two here. So let's do this one. And I've got a feeling this is going to be let's go to this one first. 1, 2, 3. So it's a third one. I go back here. 1, 2, 3. That's B3. B3. Now let's go all the way to the bottom here first, and I got a feeling that's going to be a column. So that I'm gonna bet it's B2. This one. Nope. Okay, so I gotta hunt for it. Oh, it's up top here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we'll just see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's F4. Yeah, of course F4, because we had F5 here earlier. So F4. So there's a pattern developing here. So now that's probably the columns there, I would assume. But let's carry on. So let's just go and now have a look at what looks to be rows on here. And let's go here. Still working. So now let's select this one and go down the list. So 1, 2, 3, 4 from the bottom. Okay. Now if I go here, 4 from the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a D7. Let's write it here. D7. Now let's move on to this one, which is this one. Why is it? Oh, okay. My multimeter went to sleep. Okay. So we're to this one. So I said D7. So let's try on this side. No. Okay, it's 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's D5. Okay. Now let's go to this one here. No. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's D4. Okay, let's continue here. So we've got okay, the last two here. Let's take this with this one here, and let's go down the list. 2, 3. That's interesting. Ah, this one here. Okay, that's easy. So right there. So that means if I go here, it's the first one at the bottom. That's B6. So B6. And then we go to the last one on top. This one right here. And let's go down. There we go. So the second one on that side, which gives us B2. So B2 here. So let's kind of like have a zoom out and have a quick summary here. Okay, so what we've done is we just essentially went through and identified the mapping between these little connectors here, between the boards, and which pin is being mapped out to the ProMicro. So now we've got ProMicro. As you can see here, there's these ports that are related to the AVR chip. Well, what we're doing is we're just looking for which one of these ports are being mapped to this here. And then now it's just going to be a matter of confirming is if this is a row, where does it connect to, and can we actually validate that it actually connects throughout this way and so on this way. And then for the columns, very similarly, we'll have to check how it connects this way. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute here, we've got, when we're going to be connecting two boards like this, we've got this side here connecting with this side there, so what's up with that? And then we've got like F4 connecting to B3. Well, one thing to remember is we're not going to have two controllers on here, so it's going to be just connecting nowhere on this side. And we're actually doing a mirror, because what we have is we take this and we essentially rotate it 180 degrees to get here. Okay, so you see the square and the square completely rotated 180 degrees. So I'm not worried about like having these connected and seems to be like jumping or doing crazy things in between the two. This is not going to be connected anyway, so we're fine. So let's go back to this and confirm that. Let's start in the middle, because we'll be able to confirm our rows and our columns this way. So let's start with the D4, and you can actually see a little bit here. This one goes here, and there's actually some connections that we can look at, and then the F6 here. So there's a few things we can look into here. So let's look at that. So let's first look at the column here with F6 and the pin here. So let's take this one, and I'll zoom it on here a bit and make sure the focus is good. Okay, good. So now we're taking this one, and what I need to do is, are we connected to the diode, or are we connected to one of the switch pins? So let's first look at the pins. So we're connecting to the pin. Okay, so that means it's likely, if it's a column, connecting to the pin here, so we're good. Okay, so this confirms that it is a column. Let's just go and validate the same thing on the other ones. Yes. And then this is going to be the same here. And as we migrate down the row, okay, and this is a column. Yes, there you go. Okay, so what we have is we have our column like this. So that's, let's call this column 1, column 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the one here, we don't have any pins, but if you look at the mirror as I was talking earlier, like this one here will connect through here down here. So that means that this is B3, which is the next column over. So these are going to be connected, and this should connect to a column, which it does. Good. So that is a, and let's just change color here. So that is column, 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 and I said that this one was connecting here, so that is a column. So let's call this column 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we've got our 6 different columns. Oops, sorry about that. So what I've done here is I just said these are all my columns, and then I've said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so now let's just validate our rows. So again, let's start from the middle here using this, and I'll kind of get you to zoom on here. Now let's start with this one. So this would be a row, and typically a column would connect to the switch and a row would connect to diodes. So now we've got to figure out which one. There we go. So there's one, but it doesn't go up, it goes sideways. So we got to figure out what, there we go. So this is one on top, this is one below, and this one likely. So we've got a row connecting here. Good. So this is a row. Now let's just validate the same thing. So on top here, below, below, and where's my diode for this one? Probably on top. Where is it hiding? Gotta have a diode for this one. Oh, it's probably here. There it is. Okay, so all the square pads are connected, of the diodes are connected. So let's just go and validate the one on top. So this here to a diode. Yes, diode, 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 diode. 1, 2, 3. So let's go on this one. Diode here and diode there. And this one, the last diode there. So we're actually connecting good. So this means that we've got our rows identified. So let's start row at the top, being row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, and let me zoom out again. So row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, and this is row 5. Okay, so now we've got this identified for our board. So let's just do a summary here of what we got on this. So let me zoom a bit. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, and this is going to be equal to, so row 1 is going to be B2, B6, D4, D5, and D7. And then we've got 6 columns, so 6 column. So let's start on the side here. So column 1 is F4, Column 2 is F5, F6, F7, B1, and the next column is right here, which is going to be B3. So that's essentially the configuration that we're going to be using either in QMK, or for the BlueMicro we'll need to get this connected to our like mapped out to which GPIO, or just using the standard mapping with AVR that we do. But essentially this is the configuration that we'll need in our in the firmware. Now, if we want to use Bluetooth, what we'll need to figure out is maybe a little bit of configuration as far as where we're going to be putting things together. So let's look at our boards again. Let's take like this and then 180 degrees, rotate, and let's zoom on this again. Okay. So what do we have here? So what we're going to have, and let me just go grab a battery. Let me zoom out a little bit here. So we've got a BlueMicro. So this is what it looks like. It's going to go not quite, will go like this or not quite like this. Then I got a battery here. So let's just pull that out. Where we go. There it is. There's a small battery here, and we'll also need a power switch so that we don't exhaust the battery for nothing. I've got little boards like this for putting surface mount power switches handy, and I'll show you how this is done in one of the upcoming videos. So what we'll need to do is install or glue one of these little switches, bring the battery to it, and then connect from the battery to the raw pin, and then obviously the black goes to the ground connected. And then now let's kind of have a look here. Now let's kind of zoom in on that BlueMicro here. As you can see here, my square is the raw, whereas if you remember on the board we said opposite to the square is the raw. So it's going to look exactly as we look at it right now. So if we're looking at the board from the top, so that means the BlueMicro is going to be hiding just like this. Yeah, I don't need the multimeter anymore. So it's going to be looking just like this. And then if I flip it around, then it'll be obviously flipped again. But it's going to be like this on top, and we'll have to find a location for the battery and a location for the switch. So this is going to be like this. Now let's have a look. We've got, let me zoom out a little bit again. So what we need to do is we'll need to connect the things together. We actually need, this will go like so. So if you look carefully, we've got, let me make room here. We've got some pads right here for screws. And if you look carefully, what's going to happen is, and let me kind of show what this looks like. Rotate it 180 degrees. So that means we've got like this locations for screws, like these guys here. But if my BlueMicro fits essentially just like this, one of the screws will not be able to be used, and then we'll need to put this somewhere. It doesn't really matter where, but probably a location like this. And then we'll probably want to bring maybe around some screws like this. So that would fit very well, I think. This, the wires are long enough to reach, goes, and then into, so we'll need a couple little wires to connect that to. Now, where are we going to be connecting the power on the, for the BlueMicro on the board? Actually, because we're actually the pinout for the BlueMicro is the same width as a standard ProMicro, we don't have that funny thing happening. We've actually got all these connection points, so we'll actually be able to use our raw and our ground that's been designed to be used with those like funky ProMicro clones from China. Well, we can actually use these pins, even though if it was a ProMicro, it would not be used. So with the BlueMicro, we'll be able to use, if you look here, although it's kind of like hiding under, but we'll be able, especially if we have a socket, we'll be able to bring in essentially our power right underneath under here to power this board. So that actually is a pretty nice little feature that was added there, that we don't need to do anything special and connect anything to the BlueMicro itself, which is actually pretty nice. So let's so this is it. So now we've identified where everything is going to connect. Let me kind of go back onto the paper here with the Bluetooth pieces. So when we zoom out here, this means that the ProMicro or the BlueMicro will fit over these pins here, and then these pins here, these two pins, the green and the blue, which kind of corresponds to the ground and the raw. Well, these two will go directly to the switch, and then from the switch to the battery. And then all we need is a little bit of glue or a little bit of double sticky tape, and then we'll be able to have all these components right there. So we've got where we're going to connect. We've got all our rows and columns lined up. We've got the orientation. In case we need to like do anything special here for like doing a reset if we don't have a switch, which in my case I do have plenty of these little button switches. So we've got everything lined up. So now it's just a matter of building. So let's get on to that into the next video. So let's finish here for now, and then I'll get building coming up.